And good morning, everyone. Greg here from the Con Hour with our conversation for today. And we are here with TD Zummack. But before we get started, just to let everyone know, Amy will be hosting the second show this afternoon. So enjoy having her. I'm going to be going out and getting stuff ready for a trip because we are going to Black Hills Con up in South Dakota. And I will be leaving tomorrow morning. Have a few more things, have to get prepared for the trip. So looking forward to that show for sure. And we'll probably be giving updates either on TikTok or Facebook, who knows. We'll decide as we travel up there. But again, we are here with TD Zummack. I'd like to welcome him to the show. How are you today?
Hi, fine. I'm doing great. How are you?
Best that we can always be doing, especially here in Houston with this heat index, which is killing us around 116. I know you don't have that kind of weather where you're at.
Not that, not the heat index like that. No, it gets hot, but we stay dry.
Now, tell us a little bit about yourself and the type of books that you write.
Well, myself, as far as the books I write, it's a little. I've written two so far, and they're a little apart from one another. One is a mystery thriller, serial killer detective type book. My most recent one is a Western, so it's a complete departure from one another. But they're both things that I enjoy. They're both what I enjoyed growing up reading. I was a big Agatha Christie fan and a huge Louis L'Amour fan when I was growing up, so I managed to write one of each, and we'll see where else goes from there.
Well, I have to say, having written fantasy and then going to Western, I guess kind of like going from crime to a Western. What was that experience like for you?
The crime is always a little more serious. You're writing that stuff. It can get a little dark and can get a little scary sometimes. The Western was a much more fun experience writing. It was more enjoyable. It's not as serious. You can write your stuff and get in there, follow some of the usual tropes, and everything goes well that way.
I have to agree with that. I think I had a lot more fun writing the Western. The fantasy, you still have to pick your spots where everything happens. The Western, it's just go with the flow and just whatever happens. At least that's how it happened for me.
Yeah, sometimes it writes itself. You're writing one thing and then you end up somewhere else you didn't expect, and that's right there.
So what would you say was your biggest inspiration to get you into writing?
My biggest inspiration to get into writing was probably just reading itself. I enjoyed reading when I was growing up. I love what books can do for you. If you have an interesting story and you have a great imagination, that's entertainment for a long time. You can read that and entertain yourself for a while. Growing up in the era where we didn't have 142 cable channels and couldn't have everything on your phone, you only had 3 channels on the TV and away you go. Those books could entertain you for forever, and that's what I enjoy the most, is where a book can take you and what it can do for you.
So you grew up in a time period where I was the remote control.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah,
Go turn that station over there. Put it on.
exactly. Yeah. Hey, it's time for the news. Change the channel. Yeah.
Yeah. So you had a lot of the imagination was actually could be picked up from then, because I know that's when, for me, Dungeons and Dragons started coming out.
Yes. Yeah. You start reading some of that stuff, and that's what it does, right? You read it, and it takes you somewhere else. It takes you to a different place. It makes you think of things that you maybe hadn't thought of yourself. You know, my experience with the Wild West was limited to whatever you saw with the movies, and most of that was Roy Rogers or the Lone Ranger. You know, you have your one good guy with his white hat, and he follows all the bad guys with the black hats. So there wasn't a whole lot of in-depth exposure. But then you start reading Louis L'Amour's books, and the way he paints the scene for you, and the way he describes everything that's happening around you, it opens up the whole Western genre for you. It opens up a whole different scene. You're like, wow, this is something I hadn't thought of, right?
Definitely. And for the crime, let's get a little bit into the darker side of that. How was that for you?
You know, my story, Amazing Grace, I actually carried that story around for 20 years before I finally got it done and published. It was I started with an idea, and I started to write it down and go from there, and then life happens. You're changing jobs, you're having kids, people get busy, you put it on the back burner, you're trying to get out there and provide for your family, and you forget about that sort of thing. And then eventually what happened, I just got angry enough at the job I was currently at, and I said, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to finish this book. So I sat down and finished it. And then as far as the actual writing of the book itself, you get into it, and some of it writes pretty easy for you, or everything's pretty good, and then occasionally you hit a stumble. Chapter 6, I believe, I had was in that book. I had a real issue with chapter 6. It was one of the death scenes, and sometimes you just have to stop and put it away for a little bit, go clear your mind, come back and tackle it again.
I can definitely understand that. I think with my first fantasy, I had everything written out, and then I went back and reread it and realized I think chapter 13 or something like that, I should have been before 2 other chapters. So it's like, that was one of those moments you had to sit back and say, oh Lord, let me think about this and decide if it's worth putting in or changing the order of everything. And it can be tough for a writer.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes you write yourself into a corner, then you have to figure out how you're going to get out of the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And once you figure out how you get out, you have to decide if somewhere in the previous chapters you could have left yourself an out, and then figure out if that's going to work or not.
Oh, definitely. So would you say that you're a planner or a pantser?
Oh, I'm a total pantser. I have a rough idea of the plot in my head, and that's about as far as it goes. Other than that, I sit down and I start typing away, and then you see where it takes you. Sometimes it ends up in a totally different place that I wasn't planning for in my head, and then you just go with that and go from there.
Now, with all that being said, where can your books be found at?
So my first book, Amazing Grace, that can be found on Amazon. That's the only place that it's available right now. My second book, The Western, The Brand of Brotherhood, is available on Amazon. It's also available on barnesandnoble.com. You can also get it on endlesskybooks.com.
Sweet. And do you have more that's going to be coming out? Are you working on any projects in particular?
I have a few first chapters that I've started. I think I have 4 different first chapters of stories that pop into my head, and I sit down and I start to write them. I don't have anything that's speaking to me currently, but I've got a few. There's a sequel to Amazing Grace that's been started. I've got another mystery thriller there that's being started. There's a possible another Western that's rolling around in my head right now that I haven't put anything on paper on, but it's there. I've been a little busy at the moment just trying to promote Brand of Brotherhood and get out there with that. So as soon as that settles down a little bit, I'll start writing some more of one of these. I'll pick one and see which one speaks to me, and we'll go from there.
Very nice. Do you have a website anybody can follow you on, or?
Yeah, you bet. You can go to tdzummack.com. It's just the T and the D. There's no periods in there, and it's all lowercase, tdzummack.com. You'll find my website there, and I'll keep you guys posted on what's happening or what's coming on there.
And can they get a signed copy from ordering there?
Or? You can't yet. I haven't figured out what I'm doing on that there, but if you meet me in person somewhere, I'm more than happy to sign anything for you. Anybody, you can send me an email and we can work out an order. I can send you a copy that I have, and I can get it signed for you that way if you send me an email.
And can they follow you on any social media sites?
Yeah, you bet. I'm at on Instagram. I'm at TD Zummack on Instagram. If there's a Facebook page, also TD Zummack. You can catch me on Facebook there as well. There's a Twitter for TD Zummack as well.
Very nice. Now, I do want to thank you for coming on the show today. And the Band of Brotherhoods, everybody go check that out. I'm a big Western fan, as everybody knows. I did write my one Western. So I love promoting Westerns because it's just a fascinating era.
It's a fun genre to write. Everything is based off Westerns. It's like American mythology. The Greeks had Zeus and all the gang. Everybody's the Americans have their bad guys and their good guys, right? And everything comes off that. You can pick stories, from whatever genre you want, and it all relates back to Westerns somehow. Star Wars. Luke Skywalker is your bright, shiny good guy. Darth Vader is your black hat bad guy. And everything relates back to Westerns somehow. You meet people that say Westerns really aren't their thing, and then you listen to some of the movies they watch and you're like, well, Westerns are kind of your thing. You just don't know it.
kind of like Han Solo, the smuggler, and
exactly, yeah. Everything's there. You've got. It's all there. It's all the same tropes you find in everything else, but it's all based off Western stuff. It's a great genre to try and write in, and they're entertaining stories.
Let's see. To me, a great story can be put into any time period. That's true. That's the
first thing you want to try. You want to start with a good story, right? You want to have a good story, and then you want to flesh it out while you're writing.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, I would like to thank you for coming on the show. Everybody go check him out. You can find his books on Amazon. You can find the Western on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I'm running a blank for the last one you said.
Endless Sky Books.
Endless Sky Books. That's actually a new one for me. So I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, he's a local publisher up here. So.
Okay. Or you can check him out on his website, which tdzummack.com. But would like to thank you for coming on. Any words of wisdom for anybody that's starting out writing?
Honestly, if you want to start it, just start it. I waited 20 years for my first one, and that's 20 years that I've wasted. You write it, you get it out there, and you can keep going, doing what you want to do. If you're going to start it, start it. As long as you have a good story, we can go from there.
Very true. And everyone, Amy will be back on today at noon, and I will be giving y'all updates from Black Hills for the Con Hour. So until then, everyone, adios.